Because before, people used to put money under the mattress.
Yeah.
That's now Jeff's generation.
Yes.
As we put it in the banking app.
Yes.
Tell me
So
about
Jeff, it was today. I'll tell you, please walk in. Well,
Walk in.
Your house today, we can't even afford to finance it. It's too expensive. But
and
at the beginning, I'll tell them, come to the bank.
And you have 25 years to pay for that, right?
25 years to pay for your house.
So if you're
a long
25
time.
years old, by the time you're 50,
you own your house.
you're walking into your own home.
Did you listen to the Hot Breakfast this morning? Here's what you missed.
John Gachora is our guest today live in the studio. If you have any questions, remember we'll be talking about NCBA and how you can dream to own a home.
Well, he's in studio with us today and he's going to tell us all about NCBA and what they do in terms of financing. We'll talk about property finance and all the things that the bank does. And you will make the bold move today as you wade through the mud and go to NCBA near you.
And make your dreams come true. John Gachora, welcome to Hot 96.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Nick.
Welcome. It's good to see you.
Great to see you.
How is the bank? How's the group?
The bank is good. As you know, we just reported our results. Really impressive results, especially given the pandemic. Our asset base, we are close to 600 billion, up 12% at 591. Our customer deposits at 470 billion, again, one of the best performance during the year, up 11%. And profitability, profit before tax was up 3 times at 15 billion. So really good year for us.
Wow. John, and that's... And a lot of banks are reporting really good numbers, right? And
Yes.
like you said, despite the pandemic, despite a horrible 2020, what do you think? What do you attribute these huge profits to?
So a lot of it has to do with actually recovery. So in 2020, a lot of banks took very high provisions in preparation for what they thought would be a very tough time for customers. And indeed it was. If you look at the NPL ratios, they were up this year. However, looking at this year, I think the recovery has already begun. I think we have seen that in the economy. And typically banks should lead in recovery because you want very high performing banks for them to support the economy. So it should be a good thing for the economy that they're doing well. But it's coming out of a base that was quite low in 2020.
So how is the economy looking for the country? Because, sometimes Treasury will talk about the negative or positive growth.
Yes.
But ultimately, because you're in charge of finance and the money that gets into the market, what is the real situation on the ground?
So from what we are seeing as NCBA, we have projected a growth rate of 5.2%. And I know a number of projectors have revised their projections. We haven't revised ours. We believe the economy will still grow at about 5.2%. Obviously, we have the event risk called elections. But I believe Kenya has gone through this event quite a few times. And we are coming out of a very, as you know, very difficult 2 years. So I believe there's a lot of pent-up demand. Obviously, what's happening between Russia and Ukraine represents some kind of risk that we see. Hopefully, in the short term, I see the war is changing, so that could be ending fairly soon, I hope. If that happens, I think we'll get to a 5.2% growth. It will be a good year for Kenyans.
And as in banking, what would you tell Kenyans is growing the most? Like if someone is thinking of, putting their money somewhere, what path should they take?
Look, there are many areas. Obviously, for the big investors, I would say that manufacturing is growing. We're seeing a lot of local manufacturing starting to gain relevance, obviously because of the disruption of the supply chains. So local manufacturing is gaining a lot of relevance. I would say for the ordinary mwananchi, the stock market for me remains very undervalued. I would say there's a good time to get into the stock market. It's easy to get in for any investor. That's a place that I would say start. Obviously, I would say that as we turn, housing demand will also continue to increase. As we are seeing, there is more need to work from home, so more homes are becoming offices. And where a family used to rent their servant quarter to somebody, they have converted that into an office. So the person who used to live there will need somewhere to stay. So I think housing demand will continue to rise. So for those who can develop affordable housing, I'd say that's a great opportunity.
Speaking of housing, John, when we were growing up,
Yes.
we all aspired to own that home.
Yes.
That was our dream, but it was almost unreachable then. Do you see more? Is that goal more realistic now? Do you see?
I would say it's actually very realistic for many reasons. One is because banks are willing to fund mortgages which are fairly long tenor, and they're willing to give rates as low as 11.9%. More importantly, for the beginners, I would say for the beginners who want to own homes, now thanks to the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company, banks working with Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company are able to give rates as low as 9.9%. NCBA is giving 9.9%. So any Kenyan today should be able to own a house, and I encourage them to come forward. More importantly, NCBA also does mortgages at 105%, which means you're not having to put down a deposit. We're paying for your lawyer fees. We're paying for your valuation fees. It's a great place to be this time. Yes.
Tell me
So
about
Jeff, if it was today, I'll tell you, please walk in. Well,
Walk in.
your house today, we can't even afford to finance it. It's too expensive. But
and
at the beginning, I'll tell them, come to the bank.
And you have 25 years to pay for that, right?
25 years to pay for your house.
So if you're
It's a long
25
time.
years old, by the time you're
By the
50,
time you're 50, you own your house.
you're walking
Outright.
into your own home.
Absolutely.
And this 11.9% is fixed for 3 years, no matter what happens.
Fixed no matter what happens for 3 years, yes.
Okay, maybe you can take me back a little bit. You mentioned Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company,
Yes.
where they do it at 9%. What's the situation with that? Are there particular people who qualify to use Kenya Mortgage Refinance? Or?
So Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company really doesn't work directly with the borrowers.
Oh,
So the borrowers will come to the bank. We work together with Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company to ensure that we can give borrowers mortgages for as low as 9.9%.
Okay, so now the people who qualify for Kenya Mortgage Refinance are like, let's say, from the civil service.
Civil service, you don't have to be civil service, but civil service, teachers, anybody who has regular income
Okay.
and can afford a house or an apartment that's below 4 million shillings. That is a cap. Should come to us, they'll be able to get that. And it's not just us, I think a number of banks are doing it. And so if you go to your bank, even if not NCBA, I encourage you to go to NCBA, but if not, ask your bank to offer you the KMRC backed mortgage.
Okay, and what's a maximum, because you said Jeff's house is beyond NCBA, what is the maximum mortgage?
No. I was joking when I said that. I think for KMRC there's a limit, but beyond that, I mean, for a regular person, we can finance as much as the house cost. I mean, we have financed hundreds of millions in terms of housing.
John, we've seen many banks scaling down in their regional footprints, right?
Yes.
And going more digital. NCBA last year opened 12 branches. 12.
Yes.
What's the retail expansion strategy there?
Yes, Jeff. As you know, we when it comes to digital, I think we are top of the line. Yeah, through Fuliza, working with Safaricom. So we know digital very, very well. However, when we did surveys with our prospective customers over and over, they tell us the number one reason they shall open a bank account is proximity to a branch. Now, they may never visit a branch, but they will not open an account with you unless they know where your branch is. So for that reason, we find ourselves in a place where if we want business in Kakamega, we have to be there. So yes, last year we opened 12 branches. So now we are in Kericho, we're in Kakamega, we're in Bungoma, we're in Kitale, we're in Karatina, we're in Nyeri, we're in Gong, we're in Kiambu. Really just expanding to have the reach to our customers. What is good about all that is that actually our branches are showing great performance. So far we are ahead of plan on pretty much every metrics that we track. We believe 5 of them will turn positive this year. We'll start making money this year. So it's actually very good. It's proving, the theory is proving on itself that branch expansion still have a place to play. What we have seen since we started this expansion is a number of our competitors have also announced that they are starting to expand their own branch network because they do realize that theory actually works.
By the way, I'm still very old-fashioned, so I still walk into a branch and NCBA ABC Place. We've got
Fantastic
great
branch.
Great people there.
No, thank you.
I really enjoy it.
Thank you.
And great customer service, by the way.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you, Jeff.
For many years, I've been reading in the papers that you're also number one in asset financing generally.
Yes.
You want to tell us a bit more so that in case someone's not taking a mortgage, maybe they can take another, a finance of some sort?
Sure, yes. Our heritage, a lot of it has to do with asset finance. And it's true, Nick, we control today 33% market share of all vehicles financed in this country. So that means when you're driving and there's traffic, every third vehicle is financed by NCBA. Unfortunately, we get blamed for traffic, but that's okay.
At least that's advertising. That's NCBA.
Now, for us on asset finance, what we have done is perfected the art of buying a car. Today, if you apply, and it's all online, if you apply for financing for a vehicle, we are able to tell you within 15 seconds whether you're going to qualify or not, within 15 seconds. And then the rest is just the documentation we need. And I've seen people drive off with vehicles in 12 hours.
Nice.
The moment they apply for it, the evening, the following morning they're driving off. Now, we do want to get to a point where you can walk into the showroom and drive your vehicle the same day. We are getting there.
This is Nick's dream right there.
Absolutely.
That showroom.
Yes, you know me very well.
And I should also point, Nick, we also do used vehicles. I think people may think we only do new vehicles. We do used vehicles. So if somebody is looking at a vehicle out there that they want to buy, they should come to NCBA. We'll process that very, very quickly.
All right. And you said you can do it online, so you have to be a customer of the bank first, and then...
You don't have to be a customer of the bank first.
You see, that's information someone needs.
You don't have to be a customer of the bank first. You can become a customer by purely borrowing to buy a vehicle.
Because the paperwork remains with you anyway, so they still have to.
Yes.
That's not many people know that. I didn't know. I'd assume that you have to be a customer. So nice.
John, you've been in the banking industry for what? 3 decades, let's say, plus?
3 decades.
Have you
almost.
Have you seen a change? Has it been a big change?
I've seen a lot of changes, and also because of the type of banking I've done. In New York, I was an investment banker, so that's a whole other area. Investment banking, Wall Street, a lot of traders, really fast talkers, and a lot of numbers. Then in South Africa, I did coverage across Africa, where I had customers and looking after banks across Africa, and obviously going from country to country, we are very different. I would say, for one, Kenya should be very proud of itself. Because if I look at Africa, except perhaps for South Africa, there's no better developed banking system than Kenya. Across the whole of Africa, not just sub-Saharan Africa, the whole of Africa. So when you look at that, we should be really proud of ourselves. I mean, people talk a lot about Nigeria, but I can tell you, Nigerians come to Kenya to learn how to do banking, how to have functioning financial systems. So have I seen change? Yes, of course. A lot of it has gone digital. It never used to be, as you say. Most people would come to branches. I have seen employees get younger and younger. I think if you go to our branches, you'll find very young employees. In the olden days, you find a branch manager was 50 years old. Today, you don't find that. So a lot of changes are going on. And also just the products that we offer. There was a time, you had to have an introducer to walk to a bank, and then even the introducer introduces, you have to have another introducer. Today, you just get up, you see a branch, you walk in, and you can open an account for most banks. So a lot of improvement, a lot of changes.
What's happening to the 50-year-old bank managers? Asking on behalf of all 50-year-olds. Is it that they don't conform to new ways of doing things, so it's easier to work with younger people?
No, they do conform, actually. But I think what we have done is that over time, Kenyans have become very entrepreneurial. So a lot of the bankers that would historically have stayed in the same position for a long time. Today they don't stay. If they don't get promoted, they go into entrepreneurship. So that's the change we are seeing.
Yeah. Tell us about NCBA supporting SMEs and MSMEs.
Yes, by the way, that's part of our asset finance history was supporting SMEs. So we do a lot of small trucks. A lot of the trucks that you see bringing vegetables to markets, those are financed by NCBA. And I would encourage anybody who is in that business to consider us. But beyond that, we obviously have all kinds of products for SMEs, but more importantly, we also partner with Strathmore University to train SMEs, and it's a really good cause for any upcoming entrepreneur to go and benefit from this highly subsidized course that we work with Strathmore. Beside that, we also do foreign trips. We have done trips to China. We have done trips to India. We've done trips to Turkey, just for people to meet with other entrepreneurs, other suppliers for goods that they may be able to supply in the country. So again, working very closely with SMEs. And also, I think beyond that, it's worth saying, for the micro SMEs, a lot of our M-Shwari loans actually are used by micro SMEs or small, or even pop and mama businesses who borrow from M-Shwari, 50, 70,000 every morning, trade with it and pay it by the end of the day. And we see this cycle every day. I think we're perhaps the biggest supporter of those the Mama Bogas and Baba Bogas, yes.
When NIC and CBA merged in 2009, less than 3 years ago.
Yes.
Did you visualize that less than 3 years later you'd be as big as you'd grown this quickly, despite the pandemic in between?
No, I think. Look, obviously, when we merged, we didn't know about the pandemic. Perhaps we would have thought twice about it. But thank God, I think one is we have great people. We have great people, and that has proven over in itself. I think the vision of our board has come through. The support that we get from the board, and also I must say our customers have been very, very supportive. When banks merge, one of the biggest fears is that customers will not get used to the new culture, and they leave. What we have seen is we have had a fantastic retention. As I mentioned, our deposits have grown just this year, 2021, by 11%. The fastest in the industry, I must say, of the large banks, which means customers continue to trust us. They continue to be with us. So did we envision it? We had big dreams. That's why we came together, and it's proving itself.
So NCBA is a wholly Kenyan institution, yeah?
100% Kenyan institution, and also in terms of ownership, majority owned by Kenyans.
We see some of your competitors moving in the region.
Yes.
You see the East African communities growing by leaps and bounds. Now Congo is going to join, giving a region of about 300 million people. Are there plans for NCBA to expand beyond Kenya?
Yes, so first of all, we are already in 5 countries. We are in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Ivory Coast. So we're present in those 5 countries. We are certainly looking to invest in more expansion. I mentioned recently, yes, as NCBA. As I mentioned recently, one of our big advantages are digital business, the one we work with partners. In Kenya, we work with Safaricom. In Uganda, we work with MTN. In Tanzania, we work with Vodacom. And in Ivory Coast, with MTN. Working with these partners, we have proven that we can take our products like M-Shwari and others and take them to these countries without having a physical bank in place, which is what we are doing in Ivory Coast. And for that reason, we're looking to expanding, as I announced recently, into Ethiopia as well as Ghana, being markets that we think are ripe for the digital proposition that we offer.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about Intra-Africa trade, and have you seen it grow in the last few years? Because 10 years ago, nobody used to talk about Intra-Africa trade. Yes. Do you see it growing now?
Well, we're seeing it, especially across East Africa. The larger East Africa, I think that is becoming a reality. I think if you look at the trade flows between Kenya and Tanzania, that has grown tremendously. Uganda, of course, and Rwanda. And also DRC, I think now coming on board, we're going to see that growth. Obviously, I think governments need to do more because in a lot of these places, what matters is transportation. I saw somebody talk about the fact that it's cheaper to transport something from China to Dar es Salaam than it is to transfer it from Dar es Salaam to Rwanda. I think it's true for Kenya as well. It's easier to bring something to Mombasa from China than it is to move it from Mombasa, even to Nairobi. And I think that's a scary view. So I think the governments need to do a lot more to bring the cost of transportation down. And if that happens, I think we'll see improved intra-Africa trade.
Do you have like people in the banking institution who would be able to lobby government to do something about like such logistics? I mean, you hang out with them, I'm assuming. You sneak it in, you're like, Waziri, do you feel like we can?
Nick, we obviously talk a lot about intra-Africa trade, both as Kenya Bankers Association, but also in my position as the director of KEPSA as well. We talk about this a lot with the government. I think the government is very keen especially the Kenyan government, has been very keen to embed intra-Africa trade. And I would say that the current administration, as you have seen, working with Ethiopia, working with DRC to bring them on board, I think they have made great inroads. And I hope the next administration continues to work on those successes to make sure that happens.
You can leave us some names so that we interview them next month. We say, Mr. Gachora said, what have you done so far?
John, you mentioned Ethiopia a moment ago.
Yes.
And for years, the Ethiopians were very resistant in their banking industry,
Yes.
very rigid.
Yes.
What changed?
Well, we don't know what changed. Or let me put it this way. It hasn't really changed. They have announced that they will allow foreign banks to come to the country. Obviously, announcements to the process, it's a journey. And so we're all waiting very keenly to see when that decision is made and how it's going to look like, what restrictions they still apply to foreign banks. But we are very, very hopeful. I think it's also the realization that you can't really, in this global moment, you cannot have a very closed economy. I think that realization is key. But also I think the work that the African countries, and again I say the current administration in Kenya, for example, has done in fostering those relationships has gone a long way to make them more comfortable that foreigners are not crooks, that foreigners can help the economy.
Okay, maybe I'll take you back to property finance again, because we spoke about mortgage for houses.
Yes.
But we didn't speak about, construction loans and what's the other one?
Plot loans.
And plot loans.
Yes.
Maybe you can tell us that one. Do you also have to be with the bank, or you can do it from outside? Because after you told me that motor finance, you can be from somewhere else and you just financed.
Yes.
So maybe you can take us through the property finance for plots and construction.
Sure. We also do offer property finance for plots and for construction. For plots, we tend to say that you must have been our customer for about 6 months.
Okay.
I think it's just useful to get to know you because we also don't want too many speculators. And as you know, land in the last few years has been very speculative. But for construction, again, we do loans. Those you don't have to be our customer because there'll be a period of time by the time usually you start construction. And also we release money as the construction progresses. So we don't give you the money all at once. So that you don't have to be our customer before. And we offer that as well. For any size of construction. So
what does one need for construction loan? Jeff and I are thinking of making the Homer Institute of Media.
So I think if it's construction for your own home, obviously what we need to see is that you've had some income. And people often ask, how do I demonstrate I have income? And I always argue, if you've been paying rent, clearly you've had income.
Okay.
You can demonstrate you've been making rental payments for a period of time. That shows that money that you've been making rental payments can go to support your mortgage. So that's one thing that we look at. I think the second thing we look at, obviously, is for people who are employed, we look at what we call debt-to-income ratio, because we also don't want people to overburden themselves.
Okay.
And Kenyans, we're good at that, yeah? You see a Kenyan is fully leveraged. They don't have a cent to save at the end of the year. So we try to make sure that we watch that as well. I think besides that, really is the relationship you have with the bank.
All right, and for that, because I know mortgage is up to 25 years for construction. What's the term?
We typically do up to 10 years, but what I tell people is don't worry about the 10 years because as soon as you're done, you can convert that into a mortgage, which is 25 years.
Or you can use that as collateral.
Exactly, and convert it to a mortgage.
All right.
And then there's something called director's mortgage. If you're in a group, if you're a director in a group.
Yes, if you for certain groups, they have what we call schemes with us. So a company will come, sign up a scheme with us and say, for this scheme, we want our employees to benefit. And so you'll see some companies, the employees are getting as low as 6% on mortgages because they have signed up with us to give their employees such benefits. So a company like yours, I would encourage them to come and talk to us.
Hey, let's talk to the boss, huh? 6%.
Yes.
Imagine.
Doable.
That's very nice. Boss, are you listening? That's some great insight. So up to 10 years, and that's 100%. So all someone needs to do is show they have an income, show that they own the land they want to build on, come with the plans and everything. and all the approvals.
And all the approvals. We have to have the approvals.
And then your professionals also help and say, here's the first 2 million, do this.
Yes, then they'll come and
inspect.
check and say, have you spent the 2 million wisely? And if you have, then we'll give you the next 2 million like that, like that.
Oh, if I haven't been wise with the spending, labda nilienda Mombasa hapo katikati.
Hapo ni shida.
Hapo ni shida.
And they went to just think about the plans. Do I want a bigger balcony or not? So. And the financing on that is how much? The interest?
It's about somewhere between 12 and 13%.
Or roughly around the same as done for
Roughly
mortgage.
about the same.
Point.
Yeah.
Give or take a point or two.
John, you mentioned a moment ago about elections.
Yes.
And yes, we have another election year ahead of
Yes.
us. Is there nervousness in the banking industry, or how does the industry feeling?
Actually, today we are not. As I said, our growth projections, we haven't changed as NCBA at all. And I believe now, speaking for the industry, we're not nervous. We have seen resilience in that industry. We've gone through elections before. As someone mentioned, I mean, the biggest contested democratic elections were the United States, and they got over it and continued. We see Kenya as having gone through contested elections a few times. People have voted and people have woken up the following morning, and we have kept our branches open. So for us, we're not nervous. We believe the system will work. Kenyans are reasonable. Kenyans know what they want, and they'll exercise their choice. And the following day they'll still need a mortgage. The following day they'll still need a car loan, and they'll still need somewhere to put their money.
Nice. Selina Wakari is asking, can she open an account from outside the country? Because she's in Abu Dhabi. Yeah?
Abu Dhabi, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Serena. Will if you just send us a mail, we have a diaspora team that deals with anybody who is out of the country, and they'll help them open an account.
Oh.
It's easy as ABC.
All right.
Speaking of which, John Ngomu Kiarie is actually in Kampala, Uganda. He says that great listening to John Gachora. We are coming to join NCBA in Kampala.
Welcome. We have a great branch we have a few branches in Kampala, so it's easy. And by the way, if you open your account in Kampala and you come to Kenya, you transact as CVA in Kampala. Absolutely.
Maybe you can tell us about what was that thing that was on my mind? The results were announced last week, I think.
Yes.
And so dividends are out, and now that you are here, you can encourage some of our listeners to come and buy the shares. You can tell us a brief history of how it's come and gone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, so as I said before, if I were to advise a Kenyan today where to invest, I would tell them look at the stock market. And on the stock market, one of the counters I think has been undervalued is banks, and especially NCBA. We announced dividends. We are paying cumulative 3 shillings per share. That's a yield of 12%. You can't get better than that. 12% on your money. So if you bought shares at the beginning of the year, you earn 12% cash that we're giving to you. Yeah? So I think it's very, very good return, given the results that we announced and the fact that if you look at the momentum of growth that NCBA has, I would say that I would encourage anybody who has spare cash to look at those, to look at the counters, and especially, as I said, I think the NCBA counter continues to be, in my mind, quite undervalued.
Do you find Kenyans more and more being attracted to investing? Are they? Because before, people used to put money under the mattress.
Yeah.
That's now Jeff's generation.
Yes.
As we put it in the banking app.
We've seen, Kenya goes through cycles. There was a time everybody was talking about the stock market when the likes of Kenya and the likes of Safaricom were IPOing, if you remember. That time everybody wanted to be in the stock market. I think they were a bit disappointed because the performance, came down quite a bit, but it's cyclical. And Kenyans don't have a lot of patience for cyclical. So we immediately went into land and started buying plots. Every center anybody had were doing plots. And now that obviously has again gone through the cyclical dip. And now I think we'll start seeing people come back. So if you ask me today, one is be resilient in investing.
Yeah,
remember, investing is long term. It's not overnight. Overnight is betting. There's not investing is not investing is not the same as betting.
Yes.
So invest for the long term. If you're a parent, there's a very good time to invest for your kids. And if you think you're investing for your kids, then in your mind it has to be long term. So that's what I expect to see. Now, I would encourage, as I said, everybody to look at the stock market as a place to make investments.
All right. Do you have any products? You mentioned children, and some banks have like a kids bank account. Do you have any of those?
Absolutely. We have kids bank accounts, junior accounts, and and in fact we have lots of juniors with us. I would also like to say, as I talk about juniors, one of the things that you may have seen us do a lot now is encourage juniors on the golf course. Something that we sparked last year, working with the Junior Golf Foundation. We started the whole junior movement for golf, and luckily we have had other friends come in and join, the likes of Safaricom and others have joined to encourage juniors. And in fact, we had our NCBA junior tournament in Limuru this past weekend, and we had 160 kids sign up. On top of that, we're doing clinics for beginners. So we've had kids from public schools show up and come get trained on golf. So that's something I would really encourage kids to look at and parents to look at, because it gives a lot of discipline to the kid. We'll start talking to them about money during that time. So far we haven't, and we start educating them, and then they'll get accounts which are which are free for kids.
Oh, what do you see NCBA in the next 5 years?
Well, I see NCBA at, as I said today, we are close to 600 billion in terms of assets that we manage. I see NCBA growing into the region. I mentioned a number of countries. We're also looking into a few more that I cannot disclose at this point. So I see us growing into a number of markets. I see us being, we are currently number 3 in Kenya, and in the region for that matter, we are the number 3 bank. I see us obviously cementing that position very strongly. I do realize the top 2 are quite far from where we are, but I would say cementing that position very strongly. One of my dreams is to employ a lot more people, create employment.
Yeah. You know, for someone who studied electrical engineering and computer science, John.
How did you just jump from that into banking?
I'd say, and I think that's actually a very good question, given that results for KCPE just got announced, and everybody is starting to think about what do I study and how do I determine my future. I think today's world is that anything you study should prepare you for 2 things. 1, to research, and 2, to question. And if you have those, to research and to question, then you can do anything. So being an engineer really prepares you for that, for a very inquisitive mind. So I view banking as just another iteration of engineering, to tell you the truth. Because every day you're looking at, in science, in engineering, you talk a lot about inputs and outputs, and that's what you do in banking.
And innovation and all of that.
And innovation and all that good stuff, yes.
Do you have do you go talk to also high school students to, open their third eye and stop, this microwave generation? Do you have like an initiative where, as a bank, you go and talk to them about how it takes a journey to getting to the top? Because you see, I see also once you say you're in engineering and now you're in banking, if a kid is listening, they know, even if I took path A, I can take a roundabout and take road C and still get to what I want. Do you have any of those happening with the bank where you like mentor?
Yes. So the bank runs in working together with Mentenda. We actually do mentor quite a few schools, especially Upper Hill is where Upper Hill High School, we spend a lot of time there with the kids. Personally, I go around talking to a lot of kids. Pre-COVID, I had spoken quite a few times in the University of Nairobi Career Week and other places, and so just doing exactly what Nick is asking. But I would say today, for any kid who is in school, the most important thing is to do what you enjoy. To do what you enjoy. So if you enjoy math, don't say, I want to be a lawyer, therefore I will not do math. If you enjoy math, please do math. Do what you enjoy. Because what you enjoy is what you keep chasing. If you do something that you don't, very soon you lose interest. When we have seen doctors getting trained and immediately they graduate, they say, I don't want to be a doctor. Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's to do what you really enjoy. That is the key.
And what is the greatest lesson you've learned from this COVID pandemic, John, the last, 2 years, let's say? What's the biggest lesson?
Well, for me, it's really that life is short. Life is very short. And care for the people you care about now. Don't wait for tomorrow because they may not be there. So give them the time. I talk to my staff a lot about family. That they need to give time to their families because tomorrow is not promised.
Tomorrow is not guaranteed.
You seem like a nice boss.
I hope I am.
I'll do a quick, what do you call it?
Survey. Someone told me that to be a good boss, you must live by the mantra. If to be a CEO you had to be elected, would your staff vote for you? And I ask myself that question every day. Yes.
Would your staff elect you?
Yes.
Wow.
That's really well
That's
put. Really
deep.
well put.
So it's a typical day for you as you go to work, from like when you wake up as a CEO of a bank.
Well, I don't really have a typical day, but I'll tell you, when I wake up in the morning, I wake up fairly early these days because I have to drop my kids at school.
Okay.
So that's one thing I do almost religiously when they have to be in school early, and my kids tend to be in school by 6:15, 6:30.
Whoa.
So I drop them at school. They do early morning. Jeff, you know early
Yes,
morning in our
indeed.
usual school.
Yes.
So I have to do that. But once I do that, a lot of meetings, do a lot of meetings. Then I'll spend a bit of time just meeting, both internal and external. I do a lot of customer meetings as well. And during this season, a lot of board meetings as well. A lot of board meetings where I have to explain what we are doing, our ideas, get feedback from my board and get support for some things that we want to do. And then I will spend a lot of the evenings, I actually spend looking at some of the credit applications that I have to look at. Usually the very large credit applications I'll have to look at as well.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So like the one that apply you, that one will come to your desk.
Like when Nick comes, I am sure it will come to my desk. The kind of house you want, Nick.
With that big balcony.
That big balcony.
With an underground swimming pool.
There you go.
Dreams are valid.